Hello, I'm Cameron Graziano, and my final project for Africana Studies is Black Studies. I'm a senior. This is my fifth year on campus, and I'm expecting to graduate next semester. I chose Black Studies as a topic because it's super interesting and really inspirational as a topic to learn about different uh, cultures and struggles of different people around the world. Thesis. Black studies has been a crucial part in African American history and American society because it allowed African Americans to be seen as intelligent, capable human beings with the power, status, and rights to achieve whatever they desire. Background of Black studies. Black studies, African American studies, is a field of study devoted to the history, culture, and politics of Black people from the US. It's a subfield of African diaspora and Africana studies, which are the fields that focus on the people of African origin worldwide. It is also a fight against mass incarceration, police brutality, justice, equality, and being treated as human beings for all African Americans. According to a book by Fabio Rojas that details a timeline of Black power, the Black studies, the Black Power movement spawned this discipline, and now there are more than hundreds of different courses. Violent and nonviolent protests also influenced the establishment of Black studies, such as the civil rights and Black Power movements. According to Robin D.G. Kelly in their article, Black Study, Black Struggle, he explains throughout the previous year, it has often been college students who hit the streets, blocked traffic, occupied the halls of justice and malls of America, disrupted political campaigns, rallies, and risked arrest to protest the torture and suffocation of Eric Gamer, the abuse and death of Sandra Bland, the executions of Tamir Rice, Ezell Ford, Tamisha Anderson, Walter Scott, Tony Robinson, Freddie Gray, and many more. These protests against campus racism and ethics of universities face financial entanglements interrupted on nearly 90 campuses, including Brandeis, Yale, Princeton, Brown, Harvard, Claremont, McKenna, Smith, Amherst, and many others. These demonstrations were led largely by Black students, as well as coalitions made up of students of color, queer folks, undocumented immigrants, and allied whites. According to an article by Robin Kelly, from the same article, Black Study, Black Struggle, on campus libraries, Black studies were conceived not just outside universities, but in opposition to Eurocentric university culture, which has ties to white supremacy, military, and corporate power, as well as racial discrimination. It emerged from mass revolts that students from various universities made as a stand against all negative acts toward African Americans. When Black Studies finally was approved as a course in department, it was focused on recent events such as race riots, school riots, discrimination, and the murders of African Americans. Then it moved to being a creative and safe place for African Americans to learn about their cultural origins, heritage, struggles, and anyone who wished to take the course to teach themselves about African Americans and their struggles. But it also provided a place for them to connect their struggles with theirs and the struggles of African Americans to otherworldly issues as well. From Walihia's article, Introduction, Black Studies and Black Life, Black Studies became an institutional disciplinary formation in mainstream US universities in the 1960s and existed since the 18th century as a set of intellectual traditions and liberation struggles that have borne witness to the protection and maintenance of hierarchical distinctions between groups of humans. Black Studies represents a substantial critique of Western modernity and a sizable archive of social, political, and cultural alternatives. As an intellectual enterprise, Black Studies investigate processes of racialization with a particular emphasis on the shifting configuration of Black life. If racialization is understood not as biological cultural descriptor, but as a conglomerate of socio-political relations that discipline humanity into full humans, not quite humans, and non-humans, then Blackness designates a changing system of unequal power structures that apportion and delimit which humans cannot claim and cannot do. Black studies also provide detailed explanations of how techniques of domination, dispossessions, expropriation, exploitation, and violence are predicted upon the hierarchical order ordering of racial, gender, sexual, economic, and national differences. According to the University of Illinois Chicago's Black Studies Liberal Arts and Science program, Black Studies teach the most pressing issues such as mass incarceration, slavery, reparations and immigrants and refugees, Blackness in the media, slavery, teach Black history itself, representation in the media, Black communities in politics, as well as the school to prison pipeline. Classes include psychology of African Americans, ancient of African civilizations, Black women in America, slavery and race relations, as well as many others. Here we have a picture on the left of the race riots and on the right, Emmett Till. Both sparked the stand to basically give African Americans the power, strength, and intellect to be able to stand up against any differences between general population and African Americans, such as police brutality, innocent mass incarcerations, and abuse of power. Evolution of Black Studies. Rojas traced the evolution of the course back to over 3 decades, beginning with its nationalist political origin. This includes the 1968 Third World Strike at San Francisco College, the Ford Foundation's attempt to shape the field, and a description of new various Black studies programs at multiple universities. According to the Chronicles of Higher Education in the 1960s, Black Studies became a part of higher education and was the first department that started at San Francisco State College in 1968 due to a rowdy and violent group of Black students who participated in the strike demanding Black studies. What is often ignored is the fact that along with other colleges as well, white students were joined with Asian, Latino, American, Indian, Black students in the struggle to establish such field. It was a multiracial and a battle as the first step in a wider range agenda for higher education. Also, according to the Chronicles of Higher Education, 80% of the student body at San Francisco State supported the strike, where they picketed classes daily, declaring that it was a strike against racism and with an aim beyond Black studies. They were aiming for a realignment and redefinement of the very meaning of democracy, citizenship, and social justice that our nation stands for. It was a stand against racial injustice, discrimination, a century of unconstitutional treatment of African Americans, and to spread awareness of the struggles, culture, and history of Black people. It was also one of the ways to empower students of all races to have racial pride, racial acceptance, and self-esteem. Today, it is rarely seen as a successful pursuit of social justice and democratic reform or a widespread institutional cultural change because most of the same issues of inequality, discrimination, personal racial attacks against African Americans back then still occurred today. Its growth was a surprise to everyone because most programs officers noted that they estimated at least 200 new programs within 12 months of founding of the field at San Francisco State. At first, they didn't have the expertise or professors to teach Black studies, as well as financial resources. The majority of grants between 1969 and 1971 emphasized racial inclusion that were given predominantly to white curricula institutions. 13 syllabi for one semester was created at Morgan State University to teach courses in African American history and literature. Other universities joined the mix, offering a class or two on African American topics such as movements, histories, and the arts. Here on the left, we have a flag of Pan-Africanism, red meaning the blood, Black meaning the color of skin, and green meaning Africa. And because of this, it's a great example because it says stop police brutality. By stopping police brutality, they wanted to stop police brutality. They connected back to their past Africa, the culture, their history, etc., and realized that they cannot stand down anymore against police brutality and other issues regarding African Americans. On the right, we have a picture of a African American holding up his fist or her fist with an inscription saying Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter also was very institutional in establishing Black studies. On University of Omaha's website, 54 of their students played a pivotal role in creating a Black Studies program and department on campus. According to July 18th, explains this activism used. In the article, it's like power to move Black students' psychosocial experiences in Black Studies courses at a predominantly white institution by Chapman, Hillard, and Beasley, Black studies gave these students psychological empowerment, self-determination, counter spaces, and self-acceptance. Black studies also aided with racial identity development, as well as academic and social resilience as a way to combat discrimination. The article explains how Black studies not only helped African Americans, but other groups as well, such as Asians, Mexicans, and Latinos, develop cultural consciousness, which allowed them to connect with their ancestors' personal history and struggles with the culture of their people. Also from Wiley's article, there have been multiple attacks against Black and ethnic studies. These attacks support a complete disregard for Black life and affirms the necessity for such courses more than ever. Wiley explains that Black studies have given African Americans some sort of voice to stand up to the struggles they face that are forced upon them by whites, and the Black studies is one of the largest ways to disassemble coloniality of Western modernity. It also explains how Black life and Black studies supply the economic, cultural, sexual, reproductive, legal, and the foundation of a brighter future for any human subject. The evolution of Black studies provided society to understand not only the importance of the field, but also how strong, intelligent, and determined individuals African Americans can be. It also provided society to learn about their struggles through the grapevine, and students who chose not to go to college eventually heard about it from their friends who did. From this, the field gained the recognition it needed to be classified as a national department that is crucial to students in many ways. Wrap up. Black studies have helped to bring the public to become aware of the higher mass incarceration rates, severe police brutality, and racial discrimination against African Americans. Without Black studies, African Americans wouldn't have a safe place to learn about the culture, elders' heritage, personal history, and have an opportunity to make a stand against social injustice. Whites can become more aware of their struggles and learn that they need to step up and support African Americans. Other minority groups can also have a place to connect their own racial injustice and history with Black history, culture, and struggles. Given the fact that the grapevine might also have contributed to the societal spread of Black studies in African American struggles, it might also be a factor in the continuing increased rates of racial discrimination, prejudice, and murder of them. But also recognize that Black studies is also a force of study that predominantly change how much of society acts toward anybody of color. Today, Black studies can be used as a platform to further the stand against racial injustice, social injustice, discrimination, and brutality against innocent people. The evidence I provided clearly proves that Black studies has been a crucial part in African American history and African society because it allowed African Americans to be seen as intelligent, capable human beings with the power, status, and rights to achieve whatever they desire, as well as give themselves intelligence, capable human beings with the power, status, and rights to achieve whatever they desire by themselves. Thank you, and I hope you enjoyed my final project on Black Studies from my Africana Studies class. Thank you.